I've made millions of dollars and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. In this video, I'm going to break down the best decisions that I've ever made in my entire life and how those things actually turned out in the real world. If you're new to my channel, my name is Austin Rutherford, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, live in South Florida now, flipped and wholesaled hundreds of houses, own almost 100 rental properties. And if you're looking to learn more about real estate, go to theaustinrutherford.com. My friends joke around sometimes and say that I have the perfect timing, and sometimes I do and sometimes I do not. But there have been a few times in my career where I hit things right at the right time when things first started getting going. For example, my first flip that I ever did as a real estate investor. And I'm gonna spoil it right off the jump, but I ended up making $107,000 net profit on my first flip. And that usually doesn't work like that. A lot of people may struggle, may break even, make a little bit of money, even potentially lose a little bit of money on their first deal. But it's the entire journey that I like to talk about. From the day that I invested into a mentor in the real estate space to the day I actually sold my first flip was a 16-month process. During that same time, I was valeting cars 50 to 60 hours a week, and I was going to college taking 15 credit hours. And I ended up buying this first house about 10 months into that journey. So I was sending out direct mail, writing handwritten letters, asking people if they were interested in selling. I ended up getting this property under contract, buying the property using other people's money. It was a $74,000 purchase, $170,000 rehab. It was very scary to pull the trigger to buy this house because the $170,000 construction budget is a huge project. There's a lot of room for potential error on something like that. Luckily for me, things actually did end up working out. So I actually drove to this house. It was about 5 minutes from where I used to valet. So I drove to this house every single day. It was 6 months of construction. And I drove to the house every single day during the construction process to learn as much as I could and to make sure that things were continuously getting done and hopefully the project was running on time. I learned an insane amount going to that house every day. I learned the demo, the framing, the electric, the plumbing, the HVAC, the windows, the roof, the siding, the lumber. I learned so much because I was on site every single day and I was just hearing how everybody talked to one another. When there were contractors in and out of the house, I was able to watch them and understand how they did things. If you do a renovation of 170 grand, you feel like you can take over the world after that. You can knock out any project thereafter. So I ended up listing this property for $350,000. And the crazy thing is the last 2 nights of this property before it was listed, I slept in the property because my contractors walked off the job and I had to finish the property myself. And I wasn't doing anything crazy, but it was the small things like the painting, the doorknobs, the light bulbs, those things. I was in there, literally I slept in there for the last 2 nights, listed the house for 350 grand, ended up selling it for $375,000, making $107,000 net profit on my first flip that I ever did. And looking back, it was very scary, like I said, to pull the trigger on that house. The property needed almost $30,000 in foundation work. Went up to the second floor and I jumped and the house literally moved back and forth. And everybody's like, oh God, you sure you want to do this? And I ended up following through with it and getting through it, even though I had to learn a lot of hard lessons along the way. But again, once you spend 170 grand on construction, you understand the business and you make $100,000 net profit, that set my career up to completely take off thereafter. So that's one of the best decisions I've made in my career, was actually pulling the trigger on that first house. The second thing that I contribute a lot of my success to is building my personal brand. I was building it a little bit before COVID-19 hit, but after COVID-19 hit, when everybody got locked down and was stuck at home, I was like, this is the time to go heavy on the brand. And I've been building it for the last 2-ish years to get to where it's at today. And the connections that I've been able to meet, the friends that I've been able to have, the deals I've been able to be a part of simply by having a brand, the rooms I've been able to get into, the stages I've been able to speak on, it does not compare, because the problem is in business and real estate, I'm going 1-to-1. I'm going me to one seller or me to one contractor. On social media, I can click post on my phone and impact thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, or millions of people off of one post. What I say is eyeballs is currency. The more eyeballs that you have on you through Instagram, TikTok, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, the more eyeballs that you have on you, the more opportunity that you're going to get. People are going to bring you deals. People are going to ask you to be a part of deals. People are going to ask you to speak on their stages. People are going to ask you to lend money or borrow money. There's just so much opportunity that can come with building a personal brand. And I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface. I have almost 1 million followers on social media, and I haven't even started. I'm so excited for this journey because I know with millions and millions and millions of people following me, eyeballs, I know I'm gonna be able to impact a lot more people, change a lot of people's lives, and make a lot of money along the way. So building a personal brand is one of the best decisions that I've ever done. And I highly, highly recommend for anybody out there watching, start building your own personal brand as well. Another thing that I did very early on, I was a few years into my career, maybe 3 to 4 years into my real estate journey. I'm about 7 to 8 years in now, and I was flipping a lot of houses. And there was a neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, that was still coming around, right? There were still a lot of bad areas in the neighborhood, and there were still a lot of good areas that were selling for high dollar amounts. I see people buying houses for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, renovating them, and then selling those houses for $300,000-ish and making a killing doing it. And I was sitting there and I was like, so all these houses are getting renovated, but there's little pieces of land, just single lots throughout the neighborhood that nobody was doing anything with. I was like, there's gotta be an opportunity with that. And a buddy of mine at the time said that he was building new construction in an area in a different state, similar to the one that I was in. They were actually going to sell houses and there'd be bullet holes in the house the day of closing. And I was like, bro, there's no way you're building these houses and selling them for $500,000. I was like, this just doesn't make sense. So I actually flew there to walk through those neighborhoods and look at those houses and see, you know, if it was a similar market to the one that I was looking to do it at. And after I went out there, it was very similar. So I ended up flying back home, drove the entire neighborhood, wrote down every single lot in the entire neighborhood and tried to buy as many of them as possible. The problem was, if I bought these lots for $10,000, $20,000, built a house and sold it for $300,000, which is what the renovations were selling for in the area at the time, I wouldn't have made money. I'd have made like $20,000, $30,000 a house. But on a year and a half project, it's not a lot of money. But I was sitting there, I was like, new construction has to be more valuable than renovations. There were no new construction houses in the area at the time. I would have been the first one to build new construction. And I was like, it has to work. It has to sell for more money, because it's new construction. It's not literally 100-year-old houses. So I ended up going through the entire neighborhood, bought as many lots as possible for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And then I ended up building 3 houses at the same time. I broke ground on 3 houses all at the same time. I got a private money lender to fund the entire deal, all of them. And then I built the houses and I listed them and I sold them all for over $400,000, making $100,000 net plus on each project. And then right then it's like proof of concept, like this works, you know? And so I still owned a ton of other lots. When I did that, all my competitors saw what was happening and saw the opportunity in the space. So then they flooded the market, started paying more money for these lots because they saw the profitability that could happen. So the lots value started to go up over time. I continued to buy a few more lots as they went up in value. Now new construction houses in that area, I just personally sold a new construction house in that area for $765,000. I remember selling these things at like 400 grand. So they've almost doubled since then. This is only about 4 years. 4 years ago is when the first new construction house was built. Since then, all types of people have came into the neighborhood. They've been building apartment buildings, condos, new construction, everything in between. But I was the one that bought as many lots as possible. And then people started building all these things. And I stopped building, but I just carried the lots. And I ended up selling the lots a couple years later, making almost $100,000 on each lot. So just on the new construction, this phase that I'm talking about, and the lots, I was able to make over $1 million by making that move. Now you got to understand, like, it was very risky when I did it. I put multiple 6 figures into land that it wasn't really worth anything because new construction was not a thing at the time. Like I could have bought all this land, and a couple $100,000 at the time was like all the money that I had, keep in mind. It was still early on in my career. I could have like built the house and it wouldn't have sold, and I'd have lost money and I'd be sitting on all this land that wasn't valued at anything. But I took a bet on myself. I took a bet on the market, bought as much as possible, built it, made proof of concept, and then ended up making over $1 million over the long run on land and on new construction. Another investment that I made is in the cryptocurrency space. And there's a lot of cryptos that I've made a lot of money on and some cryptos that I haven't made so much money on. And I've talked about this specific one before, and there's actually a lot of controversy out there. And there's a lot of people that are going to say a bunch of different things, but for me, it's been amazing. I invested in a cryptocurrency called HEX, H-E-X. And one of my first investments into that coin was when I swapped ETH, which was valued at about $6,900, into HEX and got over 500,000 tokens to make that transfer. And after that transfer, at the peak, which was only about 6 months thereafter, it was valued at over $260,000. So that's a 38x. I took $6,900, turned it into over $260,000. Now the prices came down a little bit. It's still not worth 260 grand. It's worth well over 6 figures, but making one $6,900 investment to turn into 6 figures is a phenomenal investment. And then putting money into the crypto space in general has turned out great for me. And I think over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, it's going to be the best decision that I've ever made in my life. The last 2 things here. At the end of 2021, I purchased the biggest deal I've ever bought in my life. And as you go up and you start buying bigger and bigger deals, it gets more risky and it's more nerve-wracking because you put more on the line, you have more money invested, you have more to lose the bigger the deal is. But I ended up buying this house. It was 18 single family houses that we ended up purchasing, and I actually made a video on it up here. If you want to check that out, it goes over all the numbers and everything you need to know about that deal and how I was able to buy a multi-million-dollar deal using none of my own money. So make sure you check out that video after you finish watching this video. But ended up buying that deal in day 1. I had equity of $1.7 million. So to flip houses to make $1.7 million is a lot of houses, right? But buying one large deal of 18 single family houses all at the same time, I was able to have equity of over $1.7 million in one swoop. So the bigger deals, the more profitable that those things can be. So I'm very happy that I ended up pulling the trigger on that. And I'm hoping to have more and more larger deals like that coming soon in the future. But the single best investment that I've ever made in my entire career is on me. And I know this sounds crazy and it pisses me off when people are like, whoa, why do you need a coach? Why would you spend money on a mentor? Why would you pay somebody for free knowledge and free education? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. To this day, I spend almost $100,000 on my education, for mentors, for masterminds, for experiencing things, from being around people that are in a position that I want to be in. Why would you try to recreate the system? Why would you try and go out there and try to redo something that's already been done before? Why not just copy and paste what they're already doing? Like, it's very simple. Would you rather struggle, lose money, and spend a whole lot of time trying to figure things out on your own? Or would you rather pay somebody to give you the cheat code to then go out there and be successful? I remember when I was younger, when I used to play like Nintendo 64 and stuff, like I remember going on the internet and Googling like cheat codes so I could put the cheat codes into the game to be better to then go on to win the game. So why would you not do that in the real world when you can? You hire a coach, you hire a mentor, you hire somebody that's already doing what you want to do, pay them for their experience and for their time, and then copy and paste what they're doing in your market and start making money doing that. Every time I enter a new business, I hire a mentor. When I got into real estate for the first time, I spent $25,000 on a mentor. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars thereafter. When I got into the cryptocurrency space, I spent over $25,000 on a mentor. When I got into the data space, I spent over $25,000 on a mentor. Hiring a mentor, like I said, just cuts the time significantly less and allows you to become profitable much faster with a lot less headaches. So I made a lot of great decisions in my life that turned out amazing. And I've made some not so good decisions in my life that could have bankrupted me, honestly. So we have this video about the great ideas. So if you want a video on the bad decisions that I've made in my career, comment below in the comment section, wins versus losses. And if I get enough comments, then I'll go out there and I'll make another video on some of the hard lessons that I had to learn along the way as well. And while you're down there, make sure you smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Every time you smash that button, it helps me go out there and connect with more people. So if you could do that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell so you can get all this content going forward. As always, I appreciate you being here. We'll see you on the next one.